Let's go for the actual score. Europa, natural
Greetings, humanity, and welcome to Europa Natural Law, a roundtable transmission dedicated to healing the madness, badness, and sadness plaguing our beautiful, bountiful world. Through regaining our sanity, reclaiming our inborn sovereignty, and honoring our inherent responsibility, we can improve reality. I'm your host, Nemo Jones, reporting for Beauty, and joining me today we have should we start at the top there with you, Derek?
Yeah, sure. Out in Provence, La France. Derek Bartolcelli was cracking.
Chris Nelson from the website evolveconsciousness.org, living in Canada.
Hi, I'm Wukan Kempfer from Germany, and better known as Alpha Wuk. You can find my work under alphawuk.net.
And THEO Lux, netula.com from very early morning in Thailand.
And I'm in Devon, England, which I always forget to say. Okay, and the subject we're going to be tackling today is dark care, a psychopathic world. And I thought I'd just kick off just focusing in on psychopathy because it's a subject which people misunderstand and don't really, there's a lot of kind of wrong ideas about it, I think. So, you know, I just wanted to kind of like really lay out my understanding of psychopathy, because when I was kind of really searching for answers to like why the world as it is as it is, when I encountered, you know, when I properly came to terms with the reality of psychopathy, it made a massive shift in my understanding. It just like everything just kind of seemed to fall into place, and a lot of it kind of like it just simplified everything, because it gave a really clear explanation, and it's all kind of like mainstream science, really. You know, it's like, so I'll just kind of lay out my very simple very basic understanding of psychopathy, which is it's a condition that I'm talking about primary psychopathy. So it's a condition which affects around 1% of population, and it seems like it probably affects people to that same percentage roughly all around the world. And the condition is that this percentage of people are basically wired differently to most people. So I can kind of fairly safely say to you or I, because most people listening won't be psychopaths. And they're wired differently, and what that means is that they won't react, they won't respond the same, they don't really have empathy or the capacity for that kind of, they don't really have a conscience in the sense that we understand. They don't actually have a visceral reaction to, let's say, a violent act that you or I would have. So they're actually quite physically different. They don't react in the same way inwardly. But the difference in so that's the first difference. But the second difference is that in a what's known as a successful psychopath, i.e. one who manages to thrive in society without becoming kind of obviously criminal or sort of discovered, as it were, as having this unusual condition, they would actually react outwardly to say a violent act. They would react just as if they did have the internal reaction. So they learn how to disguise this from a very early age. So it's quite a complicated kind of thing that you're dealing with. But this is a basic reality of the world that we live in, is that, you know, we have this small percentage of people who are born with this condition. And it's hard for most people to understand, because what do you mean? You see an animal being harmed and you just don't react, or you see some violent act and you don't react. You don't have a visceral feeling of that you're not disturbed by it. Yes, that is the case with a primary psychopath. They do not have that response, and so that obviously frees them in a way from the constraints of morality, because they don't have this internal mechanism. So to them, harming a sentient being is not really a big deal. It's the same as harming an inanimate object. Their internal reaction is the same. So that when we were titling this "A Psychopathic World," you know, the point is that this condition has kind of permeated reality. It's kind of come to be broadcast through culture to the extent where people are kind of acting in this psychopathic way. They kind of expect psychopathy. So we see, you know, this in a way is what the news is daily, this kind of constant update on what terrible violence has happened today. It's kind of a normalization of it. So yeah, that's the sort of piece that I wanted to kind of start with, just to sort of spell out a very basic understanding of the psychopathic condition. That's just talking about primary psychopathy, just as a fact of our species, you know. And yeah, I'll just pass it on from there.
You're right, especially in the anti-social media. It is easier for psychopaths to like get attention and to attack a victim, for example, without any repercussions for themselves. The only thing I would differ from is the 1%. I think it's far higher, and especially the another problem is in a real issue is in my opinion is that there are some mindsets and that can lead to secondary psychopathy, what is more or less the same like condition as a primary psychopathy, so that the parts of your brain don't work properly, so you are uninhibited to perform very damaging and antisocial behaviors, and don't have any like internal conflict with your conscience about that, and that makes them, especially psychopaths, extremely good liars and actors and so on. They can really like adapt to a situation very easily, and then through like cold reading, what it is called, is like sensing how they have to behave, how they have to twist a story to get like sympathy, a sympathetic reaction from the audience listening, and then so on, and so they can exploit their care and what's in a psychopathic mind view, their weakness, their care, their heartfelt like compassion, and that's what makes those kind of people very, very hard to spot and very dangerous to society, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. The you know what I'll say that the word psychopathy comes from psyche and pathos. So that's psyche is like psychology, your psyche, and your essentially like consciousness. And pathos relates to suffering. So psychopathy or psychopath has to do with suffering in psyche, suffering in consciousness, suffering in mind. And that's pretty much the whole population on planet Earth. All humans is we're all suffering in mind, and that that state is brought about by, I'd say, Carlos Castaneda talks about, you know, the metaphorical way of the predators giving us their mind, the predator mind. So that's where we emulate their behavior. So we look up to that mindset. So the predator would be, you know, just how animals would behave, of whichever one is the strongest gets to dominate the other ones because they have physical superiority. So that's the might makes right instead of right is might, which would be morality, that right is what's supposed to be mighty, but the might makes right, and they just get to dominate. So the predator mindset is the dominator mindset. And yeah, if I could segue into something else here. Derek, can you show the images I'm showing instead? Yeah, so this was in my latest presentation. I call it the 2 pillars of darkness, juxtaposed to the 2 pillars of enlightenment, which are self-defense and the non-aggression principle. So the domination ideology is the active component. And when we're talking about dark care, so this would be the main psychopathy, right? So this, instead of the sacred masculine of self-defense, this is the unsacred masculine. And this is where you have masterthink, the main part of psychopathy, where you violate rights of others, you step on others, you know, you speak falsities, you say things that aren't true to manipulate and deceive, get people to do what you want them to do, you initiate harm, create violence and injustice. And this part is what crushes the non-aggression principle of not doing any of these things. So this is where you're being evil. And the other part is that the passive part, where the submission ideology, or the unsacred feminine, where you're engaging in a slave think mindset of pacifism, not doing anything, your apathy for right or wrong, you allow initiation of harm to happen, you become a doormat when you're a pacifist because you just won't stand up for yourself. You don't defend rights, you allow violence and injustice, you ignore the self-defense principle, and that's to let others be evil. And so I'm just going to show some more infographics that relate to dark care, because this all ties in. So I call it the 2 pillars of darkness. You could look at the dark care as these aspects. The darkest one is obviously this one. This is like when you're really in the dark care as a master, but this is not part of the pillar of enlightenment. So it's also an aspect of dark care, but it's a minor one. So that's where most people are. And that's pretty much like in the apathy. So if you have apathy for right or wrong, you just don't care. And we talked about that in the last episode. And the one on the right is where you have a dark form of care. So this is something I made in 2014, I think. I called it the dark negative or false trivium, where the manipulators, to fool others, are engaging, they have dark knowledge, so they corrupt knowledge, and that's where you get the symbolism of the dark sun, the cult of the dark sun related to the Third Reich, where they take knowledge and they use it for evil means, or they pervert knowledge in order to make false things appear to be true. So they use their dark care, which is a corrupted care, and they employ their dark will to actively create falsity into the world. And so they convince and manipulate and win to get ahead. And that's the mindset, the predator mindset, the might makes right, the survival of the fittest nonsense of social Darwinism, one of the third plank, third tenet of Satanism. And another part of that, this would just be for everyone. So you have like the psychopaths in that 2 pillars of darkness. So that's where pretty much all the manipulators are, where they're deadened and they have the dark aspect. And then everyone else just has the ignorance or the apathy. So this is for the masses to be fooled. So you have limited grammar, limited input. This is the limited trivium, as I call it, or the negative circle of life, juxtaposed to another infographic I had, the first one I made, which was called the circle of life, which ties in the trinity of consciousness and the trivium. So you have restricted thought, ignorance, less knowledge or false knowledge, and you have therefore limited logic and limited processing of the limited information, and you don't think as much, so you're unthinking, more of like a robotic and automatic thinking, a programmed individual. You get programmed in ways of behaving, so that, such as the emulation of the predator mindset to favor that way of living, and so we all become mini-me Satanists, de facto Satanists, as Mark Passio refers to it as. And so you engage in emotional mind control. You know, people say things in a tone that you don't like, so then you reject what they're saying, or you want everything said in a pleasing way. And so then you have apathy and less care for things because you don't have as much knowledge and you're not thinking and you're just focusing on yourself, that satanic aspect, and the limited rhetoric, limited output. So you restrict the possible actions and behaviors. That ties into also limited imagination. If you can't imagine things a different way, then you're not going to be able to create in that different way. And so you're in cowardice and laziness. You have less courage and will. And in the middle, restrict imagination and consciousness. So you have limited possibilities and potential for what you can do in the world, such as change yourself or change the world. And in here, this is just a representation of, so you can see like, this would be the one for the masses where you're living in ignorance and apathy, but you have some where it's people in dark care and they're creating they're making things go downward, and everyone else is just following along, just tumbling down the direction that everyone else is going with the flow. But the people in the dark care could be the manipulators or the ones that they control and that actively create the negatives, such as the enforcement of the enslavement system and the control system of the police and military. So they're pushing things downward and everyone else just goes along. And there's like the few of us who have true care and we're trying to input into that flow of reality that's going downward, and we're trying to put the blue energy, the blue force, which was the positive, and the dark ones are putting the dark force and energy to make it go down. So we need to have more people uplift it and bring our reality back out towards order, freedom, clarity, courage, care, truth, and love, as opposed to chaos, control, confusion, cowardice, apathy, ignorance, and fear. This was just like a more detailed way of looking at it, and everyone is running in a systemic loop, like as a program where they live, they survive, they focus on survival, basic, a tenet of Satanism, the egotism part is survival is the highest law for them. So then you procreate, and then you enjoy life, and then you die, and then everyone just keeps repeating that. So that keeps people in apathy, ignorance, and cowardice and laziness towards moral truth and actualizing true freedom. And this was just a more detailed way of looking at the previous infographic. And this is the last one. I'll just mention one part. I'll just turn my head because I can't read it on the screen in front of me. So this one I called it the natural law boundary conditions. So you can see the juxtaposition of the true self towards right action, or the false self that stays in false action. So end up with beliefs of solipsism, postmodernism, relativism, subjectivism, moral relativism, where you become an arbiter of truth, where people think that they can just make up laws and they live on a throne of delusion, as opposed to being subservient. Well, anyways, you could check out this presentation. It's more complex. I think it's like about an hour long. But I just wanted to go through like the negative side that had to do with dark care. So as a false self, living in the direction of the wrong action, you lack care for truth and other beings, cowardice and fear of truth or morality, creating and living in falsely, disharmony with natural moral law. You're humiliated rather than being willingly humbled under natural law. You humiliate yourself by your actions against natural law, even though you don't realize it. So you're judging, insulting, and offending yourself. And that's the thing about the false when you're living as a falser self as opposed to a higher self, people can tell you how you're doing things wrong, but then you get offended that they dare judge you. Oh, how dare you judge me? But if you're actually doing something wrong, they don't want to hear it. So they're humiliating themselves, they're insulting and offending and judging themselves by their own actions. You're just bringing it to their attention. So they're stepping out of bounds because this is the boundary of natural law that we're supposed to live within. So they're, as a circle, a mini representation of the larger circle, trying to embody the larger circle. What they're not doing is they're stepping out of bounds of where natural law is, as an unrealized falser self, inauthentic living. The free will ego is overstepping and trying to rule beyond the allowed boundaries of what they're supposed to stay within, which is the boundaries of natural law. And yeah, I guess I could read the yellow part here. Entropic, chaotic force, false care, laziness, inaction, wrong action, existing outside of the boundary of natural law and don't harmonize with it. Wrong and evil emerges to create slavery and chaos. Self-governing behavior is done outside of the boundaries of natural law, and you have negative devolution that happens where you live in falsity. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks.
Very powerful.
Thanks, Chris.
Right, maybe you go, Derek.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate those slides and just like to visualize these things. I hope it brings, more of that imagination to the center stage of, your thought process and how we can, see these things more for what they are, just outside of our own thoughts, and also just build off of, what we're seeing before us. And, what I've been seeing before my eyes, to bear witness, what society is going through and living out all these lives, day in, day out throughout the weeks, months, years, decades, centuries, and it just keeps piling on. There's like programs on top of programs and all these things. And yeah, those cycles, it's like these negative feedback loops that I've, heard many researchers talk about. I've spoken about it myself as well, just because, it makes a lot of sense. And it's, for me, a really compelling way to like hear it, like, damn, yeah, like we got to get out of these negative feedback loops and what is the cause of these things, and yeah, really appreciate you bringing up the whole definition of psychopathy, like the the suffering of consciousness. And it's kind of goes into the narcissistic, that archetype of, not being able to heal from the suffering. So it's like, oh, I've suffered, so other people have to suffer. And we've seen this in, played out in many stories and allegories and movies and what have you, right? Yet, yeah, like people can be healed in this and that, yet still project certain things and resentments and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure people have studied, Watiko, whatever kind of mind virus and other things that could possibly be at play on a multidimensional level. Because, as far as my research has, gone deep into, and this is something, millions of years old. And it's basically, entities, other life forms that have kind of purposely, cut themselves off from source because they thought they could, be the creator as well. You could take it to the lore of the rings as far as, Morgoth and Luvatar and that kind of stuff. If you've read the Similarian, like keeping it on the continent, right? Shit. Good old Tolkien, that's such an inspiration. But so think of, something being cut off from source. They're not able to perpetuate their own life force energy. Kind of like think of the sun, it's providing, energy for a lot of existence in the solar system, especially here on Earth, right? Photosynthesis for starters. Imagine if the sun had to, siphon off of energy just to keep their gas pumping or whatever the fuck. wouldn't that be kind of like a black hole? Because it needs to continue to suck off energy from something else, other life form energies, to sustain its own. And so that's what we see in the manifested 3D world as well, with, you know, parasites. And on the mental plane, this is what, you know, the narcissistic archetype kind of banks off of. And, you know, you think of like, oh, like they're not getting the attention they need, so they're gonna, you know, take it from someone else, or like that energy, that kind of stuff. Think of the dynamic of the narcissist looking for the empath. And I don't see those as like the dual opposites. I've seen memes and other articles being shared around, and I don't agree with that, because an empath is in tune with that, you know, heart-based intelligence. A narcissist is not. So they need to feast off of something else that, you know, has that. And that would, an empath would be the creme de la creme of that. So yeah, you could see it as far as like polarities of, you know, being absent of that and being full of it. Yeah, sure. But you know, like, not to get into semantics, but so there's this modus operandi of needing to, you know, take advantage or feed off of, or you know, the vampiristic type of, you know, actions, you know, even psychic vampirism of, you know, these psychopaths and people that have the dark care in the satanic mind state, because yeah, they're, you know, the self-preservation is like what the first tenet of that. And yeah, it's not to misconstrue that we need to, you know, take care of oneself and, you know, have proper gnosis of self and, you know, self-mastery and all that stuff, but not at the expense of other people. You know, there's fucking boundaries. There's natural laws that's, you know, at play all the time. You know, consequentialism, people can do whatever the fuck they want. That doesn't mean they're going to escape any kind of consequences of that, you know. So yeah, with the dark care, what they like to do is try to circumvent that through their twisted logic of thinking that, you know, well, I need to, you know, like imagine, you know, building a farm, but for people, right? And it's to kind of feast off of their life force energy via, you know, taxes and all that stuff, right? How can I, you know, build a prison without them realizing it? Oh, I'm gonna, you know, use mind control to make them build a prison, and they're just gonna operate it and perpetuate it and all that stuff. And you know, we just kind of whispered sweet somethings into their ears and through propaganda and all that shit, right? And so they think they're kind of scot free off of, you know, the karmic debt that is accumulating, you know, through that suffering, which, you know, I don't really agree with that, but I'm sure it works to a degree in that. But I mean, these elites, right? What's so special about them? Especially back in the days, you know, King James and Henry and all these folks, were they not the product of incest and all this shit? Like, talk about being selfish and like, oh, we gotta keep the, and there's, you know, dark occultic, you know, even draconian shit tied into this, you know, of, you know, maintaining the bloodlines and all that shit, right? So yeah, some cold-blooded, you know, realities with, you know, some of these people and how they kind of morphed to deformed or whatever over time or whatever the hell. Like, it's just not a healthy lifestyle to be operating from dark care and having your heart eclipsed. And so the first eye is blind, pretty much, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah.
Heart.
You want to take it away, Theo? Yeah.
The first eye, the heart, right? Yeah. Just you should clarify. The first eye is the heart.
That's why I patted the chest, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So they don't have the heart, right, to actually feel other suffering, right? So a heart is also its own mind, or it's like an eye or like a brain. It's, you know, like many people who are too left-brained think that just the brain is what actually processes information, but all of our organs have their own little brain inside of them. I think this also ties to like Chinese medicine, which Yvonne got into last episode. That like the kidney has its own brain, and like the foods you eat and stuff like that, and information you also consume can affect how those organs, how healthy they are, and all that. So, but anyway, not to diverge from the topic. So when it comes to psychopathy, I think, yeah, it's well. First off, yeah, people who have dark hair, maybe they can try to get away from natural law, but natural law is always was, and always will be in operation in the universe. So we always get as a collective what we create. So or what we do, right, in terms of natural law. So if we are going against natural law, we're creating harm or destroying, right, or the opposite of creating. We're destroying, we're murdering, we're doing all those things, not just to ourselves but to other animals. We're gonna get it back on us as a collective. So you see dozens of billions of animals are getting murdered each year for the food industry and all that, and for whatever else reasons that are not valid, not aligned with natural law. We're getting it back on ourselves with all the wars and all of that. And maybe I don't know what made psychopathy come to existence, because it's a very parasitic thing for us as like as a collective, as a species on this planet, right? Like it's if we think about ourselves really as one, like the law of one, right? That we're all one, and we are all, let's say, like part of this entity that is the planet and the sun and everything. And so for us to be going against natural law, it's yeah, it's a very parasitic thing. So yeah, how did it even start? Who knows what made it start? But it's not as important as realizing that it's going on, and that we must end this condition of parasitic yeah, parasitic thing going on here. Like, yeah, people just going against natural law, and yeah, over consuming, over destroying, and like ideally we shouldn't be destroying at all or murdering at all. We should just be living in harmony. So everyone should, yeah, first off have the eye in the heart, and the eye in the above the two eyes, right, to realize with the first eye that this is going on, and that there is suffering, and it must end. And then with the third eye to imagine how we end it, and create a better world that is in harmony with natural law, and with everyone on this planet, the animals, us, even all the other life, right? Like the plants. We all, like, what we breathe out, the plants breathe in, and what the plants breathe out, we breathe in, right? Carbon dioxide and oxygen. So everything is designed for us to be in harmony. So let's go towards it. That's why we're doing this video, is to first off bring everything to awareness, and talk about even the hard stuff, right? Look at both sides of the yin and yang. You can't just look at the light like those new agers. They think, oh, we just love and lie, but hey, there is a lot more darkness going on right now, and unless you actually look at it, how are you gonna put the light on it if you're not even looking at the darkness? First, you gotta realize there is darkness, and then you can shine the light upon it. So that's exactly what we're doing today. So I'll let you guys continue from here.
Thanks, Theo. I was, yeah, just to remind people listening that you can comment on the live chat on YouTube. You can ask questions, or contribute anything you want. That's you're welcome to do that. I just wanted to pick up something that seems a bit pedantic, but I think it's quite important, really, is because I've used this concept of being in alignment with natural law, and someone actually on the Telegram chat this week kind of said, well, it's not really about being in alignment with natural law, because a natural law is just going to be whatever. It doesn't, in a way, care what you do. You know, it just gives the result. So in a way, it's more being in alignment with your higher purpose, or your higher self, or your higher potential. That's what we're kind of after, I guess. And natural law will respond accordingly. And you know, there's an urgency, isn't there? I mean, I think it's the thing is, we've been here. It seems like we've been in this kind of state for a long time. I'll read that comment in a minute because I'm midway through a thought. So it's for you know, as long as we can remember, really. But there's a kind of urgency that comes with, partly with the internet age, the fact that we are able to communicate like this kind of brings an awareness like, oh, I'm not just the crazy guy. I'm not just the local crazy guy. It's like, we're all the local crazy guy, you know, who's sort of, who is an idealist, who can actually see, no, this isn't right. No, this isn't right. You know, who's like the kid that never grew up kind of thing. And that kind of gives us this potential really to act. And it's not just that, but this sort of, if you want to call it an agenda, a tendency, this impulse towards control, which is really, I would say that's a big aspect of the dark care kind of impulse, is around control, because essentially it's coming from a place of fear. That's how I see it. And so it's the impulse is towards control. And we can see that, you know, there's so much in the world now is furthering that agenda and the potential of that through the same means that are allowing us to communicate in this way around the globe. You know, it's the same things that are the same technology is also has a very dark potential, and that's being ramped up, you know, daily. So there's a kind of urgency in this, and that's why we're all doing this. That's why we're talking about this. It's not academic, you know, it's very, very much from the heart of like, this needs to be talked about, this needs to be addressed. We need to bring this into the conversation, and somehow break through into the consciousness of more people. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring that in. And now I'll read this comment quickly.
I think that what Rick has commented is very true. I think it's like Mark PASSIO has spoken a lot about psychopathy, and I think it's really important to recognize to having the psychopath. We all have been like injured from a psychopath in our lifetimes. So, and yes, you need a bigger psychopath to defeat a psychopath. So we all have this psychopathic like part in us, and I think it's really important to recognize that part. And in psychology, usually the therapist will try to find your dark part and put it into the right place, for example, for self-defense purposes and so on. And I think that this all ties into shadow work. And I think that Mark once had a slide on the Gollum thinking, because I was hurt, I want that other entities get hurt as well. This mindset in us has definitely to stop, because this is insanity, and definitely is must be recognized in ourselves and be stopped. That what Rick called the fight with the inner demons. This shadow work is really, really necessary for most people to do and to reactivate their care and their heart. What is the best defense mechanism against those entities? Because when you have an open heart, when you really try to connect to their heart, to other people's hearts, you really quickly like can quote unquote feel that they don't have a heart to connect to. And yeah, you should be very careful around those kind of people, because yeah, they have no remorse in hurting you or like using you as tools, as useful idiots. So there are some really good works on this topic, like the Defense Against Psychopath, I think from Max Verstappen, from his book Urban Survival, and Michael Tessarion's lecture on psychic vampirism. It's about 3.5 hours long. It's really great work. It's one of his early works on all this parasitic mindset, which ties very much into this psychopathy phenomenon. I think that Mark's Cosmic Abandonment lecture is a very good explanation, or a very good possibility to explain this phenomenon. And yeah, that was like the points I wanted to bring into like research for everybody for themselves, just to know yourself better and understand yourself better, and other around you, to really understand their thinking better, and yeah, which people to connect to, and with which people you should be rather careful.
I got a point to make. I got a double pedantic to negate your pedantic on the alignment thing. So there is an alignment aspect, and most people are saying that just because you have no choice, right? They're saying to align with natural law, but they're referring to a law of nature, a natural law of the laws of nature, as in the natural law of the law of freedom, the natural law of freedom, which there is a positive and a negative outcome based on your behavior being a positive or negative behavior, which is morally right or immoral or wrong behavior. Those are the positive or negative, which are going to get you positive or negative outcomes according to the law of freedom. So that's something that you don't have a choice in the result of, but you do have a choice in how you create, which is the behavior you choose to engage in. So you can choose an alignment. Do you want to align with positive outcomes, or do you want to align with negative outcomes? So there is an alignment, because it's not just, you could say you can't not follow the law of freedom, which is true. You're going to either get positive or negative outcomes, but there is an alignment whether you're going to align with the positive end or the negative end, and then you modify your behavior in consequence. But also, there's a second aspect. So I made a post about it today on Facebook. Natural law, when we're talking about morality, so there's natural law in terms of natural laws and laws of nature. So that's like everything, like the law of gravity is a law of nature. That is a natural law, but it doesn't have to do with behavior, with right or wrong. So natural law in the moral dimension, well, there's the law of nature part, which is the law of freedom. And then there's a part that isn't a law of nature, and that is moral law, because natural law also has that aspect. When you say the term natural law, it's also moral law. So you could say moral law or natural law or moral law. And when you're saying that, you're not talking about the law of freedom as a law of nature. You're talking about a juxtaposition with man's law, or the laws of legality, which is what is invented by man. So the natural law, in terms of behaviors that are right or wrong, the moral law, you could call it the real law, or true law, or just law, because it is the real law for what our behaviors should or should not be, because they create those positive or negative outcomes according to the law of freedom. Because within the law of freedom, the morality is there. So moral law is a component within the law of freedom, which is a law of nature. It's just that moral law is not a law of nature itself, but it is a component within a law of nature. So there's two aspects that you can align with, and one is a choice. Well, they're both choices, so you can't not align with the law of freedom in terms of it's always in operation, but you can align with the behaviors you choose, and that's where you can align with moral law or not. You can choose to respect the rights of others, or you can choose to violate the rights of others. And then you're aligning with moral law, or you're not aligning with moral law. And as a consequence, you'll be aligning with the positive pathway for the law of freedom or the negative pathway for the law of freedom.
Yes, indeed.
And collusion. Sorry, I just chip in that collusion is also an aspect which manifests as inaction. So inaction is a form of action in that context.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we mentioned in the last one, that middle ground where, there's just that apathy and ignorance of people, just conditioned, not knowing what to do, just following the herd in a sense. And they're led towards, unfortunately, what's popular these days and the propaganda and what's behind all that, right? So, yeah, going back to Chris's slide, what I meant to mention as well, because, yeah, I like what you mentioned with, like, the older followers more at the top, and, like, you get that trickle down to where, at that midpoint of, yeah, like, people are just, perpetuating the negative and disinformation, misinformation, and, like, it's just creating this reality that's not quite the type of reality that's built off of true, proper care, right? And so in the midst of all this, especially in modern times, we have, the modernistic, materialistic, nihilistic, hedonistic, algorithmic, want to go viral bitch shit. Like, that's what people care about these days. Of just want to go viral, showing this most dumbest shit you ever fucking seen, just to get, oh, look, I made 1 million views. Over what? No one learned a damn thing, and you piss people off and whatever the fuck. It's like, this is what the algorithms are pumping, and it's unfortunate. And it's just, again, like, these little components of dark care that keep on perpetuating and bubbling up into the reality field. And all the, I'm not the biggest fan of the word, but NPCs, non-player characters, whatever, are just kind of latching onto this stuff. And hey, like, welcome to internet land. It's a fucking shit show. Even in the, I wouldn't say not to the same degree, but the truth community is inundated with a lot of psyops and all that shit, unfortunately. But going back to just the main field of what a lot of people are caught up in, no matter what a lot of people's levels of consciousness could be, we can still get caught up in and fall to the wayside of the NSPs, the narcissistic, sociopathic, or psychopathic tendencies or attributes or mind states, right? And it's, I mean, we can see this on so many different levels, and this is part of the perpetuation and manifestation of that dark care that we see. And we just see look around. Like, people watch the news as well. Like, there's degrees of truth to that, but it's still, it's a fucking shit show out there, unfortunately. And so, yeah, with all this dark care, and yeah, we can talk about, yeah, there's like the usurping of traditional European livelihoods, I guess, or sociological structures with, you know, the overly influxed immigration and all that stuff. Theo, you okay, man? So, you know, to what end? You know, what's the end goal of all this? And at the same time, we have people that are, you know, watching conspiracy like porn or whatever the fuck. And porn's just a really horrible thing that, you know, cultivates, you know, a good amount of, you know, dark hair and that satanic mindset and whatever. Just, you know, just think of that as, you know, people operating from their lower senses, all that below the belt shit, because they're not in tune with their fucking heart to break those, you know, chains and like the binding of consciousness, to have people operate more in that heart-based intelligence, to really get that, you know, Magi Nation, you know, Theo, you're talking about that third eye stuff. But yeah, in the midst of all this, we have the doomers and the gloomers and like the foomers, the, you know, the black pilled folks and all this stuff. And so I'm just was thinking about them to a degree of, you know, how do they fit into the scheme of this dark care? I don't want to label these folks as having dark care, but it just seems like there's not that soul spark that's really been activated within them to, you know, move from, all right, either complaining and commentating on, you know, what we know is going on. Like, we don't have to beat a dead horse type of thing. You know, what's new as far as, you know, creating solutions and moving away from, you know, the psychopathic trajectory, you know, and all this shit. So yeah, I think the dark care also stems from, yeah, having to take advantage off of other people, like I mentioned, you know, feeding off of other people's life force energy. That's like kind of a broad term that you can, you know, dissect into different ways. Like I mentioned, taxation and all these things, right? You know, slavery, whether it be actual chattel or otherwise, you know, mental slavery and all that. And of course, I kind of lost my train of thought with that, but damn it. Yeah, so these people are still getting fed on from, you know, draconian lower upper astral parasites as well. I'm thinking about the fat cats, the 5%ers, the oligarchs, and all these people, all the names, the Bill Gates and all these fuckers, you know, like they got money and whatever the fuck. It doesn't fucking matter, because their soul is still on a silver platter as far as getting fed off of by, you know, other entities as well. So what this stems of, yeah, thank you. I found out why I was going there, is because that it's like there's this fear of death, right? And the fear of continuing our existence and all this stuff. And this is why there's the fucking transhumanist bullshit going on and all these things, right? They're breaking natural laws to achieve this. And so that's why it's fucking dark care. They're infringing on the rights of other beings. And that's not okay. That's not right. That's not moral. So we can spell it out as much as possible, but, you know, there's still people at these fucking hierarchical top levels. It's like, how do we even reach to them? How do we even reach to the average Joe six-pack, you know, who's, you know, exhausted now after working 2 fucking jobs throughout the whole fucking week and all this stuff and all this, and like, who is really getting into the reprogramming of their consciousness to, you know, take proper time outside of work to listen to things like this, or just listen to themselves, like go into meditation and deep contemplation at least, or something like that, right? There's so many different conditionings that people have that they don't even know of this shit that we're talking about, right? So yeah, I'm sorry to my audience out there, whoever is listening sometime, and whoever is like, oh, natural law, we know about this, but like, why keep talking about it? Because no one still fucking gets it still. And even those that claim to fucking get it still have a long ways to fucking go. And that's okay. As long as you're trying to move towards those steps out of the dark care and into that golden care of consciousness, you know, take it to that glorious slide that Chris Nelson has about the Philosopher's Stone, right? That golden consciousness, you know, got to get the lead out, right? Shit. What you got to say, Leo, Theo, Mr. Natty Love?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that Leo, right? That Leo energy, that fire. Yeah, man, like we definitely need that Leo fire going on, because yeah, people are in that dark care, in that darkness, right? They are lacking that light, that fire. And in a way, yeah, dark care is also really not to care, because you are in like in the darkness, the opposite of light, of like positivity. You are in the negative. You are, or in your, yeah, you are not creating. You are not part of the great creation itself, like we talked about last episode with the generative principle. So you're not in harmony, and you're not even trying to be in harmony. So yeah, you're not even tapped into your true self, which is the the great creation. You are one aspect of the God, of God's mind also, like Oscar mentioned in the previous episode. So yeah, we are trying to, yeah, help people, yeah, first off, connect to themselves, to their true selves again, to their divine selves, and from there realize the darkness that the state of the world is in, and then hopefully, you know, get them to understand that maybe they should join us in our efforts. That's basically what the process all of us went through. Whichever way we got to it is to understand that, yeah, we are all responsible. We are all response-able. We're able to respond to this condition. So the condition again is there is a definitely parasitic energy, however you want to look at it. Like maybe some people might be turned off by the idea of like entities, like the, you know, like invisible entities or like aliens and all that. And I get it, okay, you know, like some people are a lot more in the logical mind, and maybe want like concrete evidence for everything or whatever. Even though, you know, it's not so simple. Like some things are more complex, and you have to have your third eye open to, you know, imagine you know, other possibilities. I mean, all the great scientists of our history had to, you know, first, yeah, had their third eye open to discover those scientific discoveries, right? Like it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's like it doesn't come out of a very left brain individual. You have to, yeah, tap into nature with your first eye and third eye open to discover things in nature. So we are actually true scientists of our day, as I like to say, because yeah, like I said in the What is Natural Law episode, it is a science. The whole natural laws, it's all very emerging science, and we are pioneers. So anyway, another thing I wanted to mention is in regards to psychopathy. I think KRIS really nailed all the, like, you know, to the point information about it, and even the etymology. But there's another etymology I read about psychopathy, which is psycho can be interpreted as the soul, and the apathy is like apathy. So it's like apathy to the soul, right? So yeah, you literally don't have that connection to your soul, right? So your soul is dead or dead end or like suppressed, also, like I talked about, and that can cause you to, yeah, fall into all kinds of minutia and matrix bullshit, and like become a sheep in the death machine, right? Like become a gear to perpetuate the parasitic system that is still going on, and it's getting worse and worse. And if you're not gonna put some stick on this gear, you're gonna get crushed. You're gonna get fucking, yeah, totally crushed. And we're all gonna get crushed. And like I had some visions of the dark future that is being perpetuated now, and it's very, very scary. And I'm telling you, like, you don't want to get to that dark future of like, basically, what we're doing to, you know, in a collective, to ourselves and to animals in terms of slavery and murder that is like going on rampant, this is gonna go back to us like big time, like tenfold, 100-fold, with whatever fucking robotic, you know, insanity AI we're creating now. It's, yeah, all those scary movies about robots taking over us and all that. It's gonna come true if we're not gonna stop it. We're not gonna have the true care to really create a utopia world, a paradise world. We're gonna create a dark world. That's what we're creating now. When we are still going against natural laws, still murdering animals, still having apathy for each other, right? We're gonna have a very, very dark, very, very horrible world, and it's gonna end in the destruction of our species and maybe the whole planet. So that's on your soul to, yeah, to know that, like, have you put a stick on that dark gear, like a dark machine? Have you put a stick on a gear on that machine in your lifetime? Or have you operated as a gear in this death machine? This is up to your conscience.
Ooh, can I add real quick? It's like, hey, are you going to be the glitch you want to see in the Matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just want to jump in and talk about. Okay, I mean we've just passed an hour, so we'll have to wrap up really. But I just wanted to bring in this thing about manipulation of care, because I think the main sort of, if you like, strength of the psychopath is this ability to manipulate. You know, if you have no conscience, then you are able to present, you know, it's this incredible psychological understanding. It's like you're looking at humanity as something that can be manipulated, that can be understood and manipulated very easily through care, because humanity cares. So you just give them things to care about constantly. Care about this, care about that. So it's like layers of kind of false dialectics. You know, the left-right paradigm is just like such an obvious prime example of this. You know, that people are so attached to their political worldview that they're just kind of completely lost in this sort of strata of reality that really doesn't have any bearing on the real power dynamics that are actually taking place in the world. It's all a complete waste of time and energy. So people spend their entire lives completely wrapped up in politics. You know, I'm a leftist, I'm a rightist, I'm this, that, the other. You know, and it has no bearing. It's a literal, deliberate drain of your life force, of your energy, and you know, you got to scrap it. You just have to absolutely step out of that. And so look at
it eclipses their true care.
It steals the true care. Yeah, it's like sorry, what was the phrase you said?
I said it eclipses.
Yeah, eclipses. Yeah. Okay, yeah. It's like it puts something in place of it. It's like so it's blocked because you're too busy thinking about something else. And so there's layers of this. So, you know, I really implore people listening, it's like, really think about things that are there in the foreground, that keep coming out of on your social media feed, in the media, that people are talking about, that are coming towards you, that are pulling on your care, you know, that are saying, oh, you got to care about this thing, you got to care about that thing. You know, I'd really implore you to like question all of those things on a deep level, because underneath all of that, there's a real power play going on. And really most of those things, if not all of those things, are really distractions, and they're dialectics. They're set up so you have this side and that side and fight, and then You know, we know the maxim, divide and conquer. You know, that's
Right.
it's so
I should-
simple.
we should
Divide
also,
and conquer.
Yeah, sorry, Nemo, but I feel like I should give examples because some people maybe might be in denial in regards to those kind of false dialectics that eclipse their care. So like we have politics you mentioned, of course, the left-right dialectic, but there's many like ideologies that are very popular, and people think like, oh, that must be the truth. Like I don't know, like feminism, like fucking In many cases, it's like that whole transgenderism. You know, like switching up their genders and defending transgender rights. Like I meet so many people like that on the internet, and I have nothing against you know, like gay people or anything like that. I think anyone can do whatever they want as long as they are first of adults and they're not imposing it, not pushing their sexuality on anyone else. But what's going on the internet, especially, it's very popular. It's like being a transgender right activist, whatever, like as if this is the most important thing in the world right now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's a perversion of the law of gender. So that's another example, like that people maybe can, you know, do a little shadow work on. Yeah, do a little self-reflection to think, do you care too much about it? And maybe you should, you know, move your care to something that is a lot more needed right now. Like, are you part of the cancer that is going on the planet and inside you and in humanity, or are you part of the cure? Are you the medicine?
The honest view into the mirror is what is needed. I think more people have to do this honest look and respect themselves in the mirror and really invest their time and attention, their spiritual currencies into themselves for healing certain parts and correcting certain wirings in themselves. So yeah, we can create a better place and start harmonizing more with existence, because we are creating hell, matrix, literally. And nobody wants us. Nobody wants this to really happen. But so many people are just so blindly putting their work and effort into this, unwillingly or unknowingly. It's yeah, sad.
Yeah. All right. I got an example for you. And I was glazing over, how these things, operate, right? Kind of just, it's like the propaganda, and then it just gets perpetuated. It's like a real easy one in, the the little macaroni motherfucking piece of Rothschild, the prostitute of Emmanuel Macron, macaroni, whack and phony. It's get the pun. Anyways, he just had to come on television to simply say, "Hey, during the dawning of the Rona, wearing a mask is a sign of respect, a responsibility. It's a sign that you care." Then boom, there's your fucking dark hair right fucking there in operation, right? And then how many masks do you see just on the fucking ground? Holy shit, these people care so much about the environment and like the virus that might be, floating around on the pavement. Like it's insane how how retarded this shit the fuck is, right? So, and that's just further evidence of, and I've had conversations with people, older folks, the boomers, and they might be doomers or gloomers, doesn't matter, but they're totally fine and comfortable with just knowing how fucked up shit is, and they're just, it's like they can't even wait. They can't wait for their lives to end and the world to fucking burn. That type of shit. They're so fucking defeated, right? And that shit boils my blood. And I fucking yell at these people in like outside of a taqueria, It's like, you don't have the fucking right to do that, As far as I'm concerned, that's against natural fucking law. You want to let Gaia, Mother Nature, life-giving energy, just, obviously it's a reflection of your own fucking self, because you're slowly decaying in your, you know, sad golem-like, you know, mindset. And yeah, Alpha Vuk, that slide of Mark Passio, that was in my mind when I first mentioned that, before you mentioned that as well, because yeah, it's just a stark image of like, just not like Smeagol Gollum character, but just like, you know, this like shadow big ass character that's like, I've suffered, so you must suffer, and it's just like a complete, you know, like one track mind of, you know, like total trauma takeover type of shit, unfortunately. So we got to heal these things, right? So got to bring to the forefront, do the shadow work like Theo said, and not lip services, but actually do it. You know, get some help if you need it from outside people, you know. Folks like ourselves, you know, we have our mentors for whatever reasons as well, and it helped us elevate to the level we are to, you know, bring forth these messages of truth and encouragement. In the end, you know, we got to shine light on the darkness, of course, so we can have these better outcomes in the end, hopefully.
Okay, Chris, did you have any last words? No. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up then. So thanks so much, everyone. I think that went great. And thanks for listening, people. It's true care that drives us to be here and bring our understanding of these essential topics. The algorithm doesn't care, but you can easily amplify our work and help the algorithm to know what is truly important by liking, commenting, sharing this video and subscribing to the channel. So please do that right now. Everyone's links will be in the description below, as well as a link to the Telegram group where you can join us. Actually, right now, we're going to jump back there and continue, have a little post-show chat analysis. So you can follow that link and join us right now if you like. So other than that, until next time, I'm Nemo Jones, reporting for Beauty, and I look forward to seeing you all next time on Europa Natural Law.
Take care if you're there.